Okay, so you clicked on this video even though you see how long it is, which tells me one thing. You really want to see how this website was created with the help of Framer from complete scratch. As you can see, it has this crazy 3D like globe in the hero section. It has all sorts of different interactive parts, and if we scroll down, we see even more craziness here. Now, if you follow along with this video, which is, I know it's pretty long, but you need time to learn. Now, if you follow along, you're gonna learn all the skills that you need to build crazy sites with Framer. So yeah, I actually don't know why I'm giving this away for free. Probably not the best decision of my life, but I'm just gonna do it anyway. So yeah, you can still support me by writing comments like, "Hey Nandi, I love you," or liking, subscribing. But yeah, my name is Nandi. This is Framer University, and let's get started. Okay, so as you can see, we are right inside of Framer, but before I show you the roadmap, I want to tell you that you can go down to the description, click the remix link, and you can get this file that I'm also looking at inside of Framer, and you'll be able to go to the left panel, Pages, and click the starter, and you can just start building with me right there. I'm going to be working on the tutorial page though, so let's see this roadmap here. So we're going to be talking about breakpoints. We're going to see how they work. We're going to also learn about the site structure that we need in order to create, sites that are properly structured and not just weird, weird things. We're going to also learn absolute and relative positioning because a bunch of beginners don't really know about these two, and these are absolutely necessary in order to create cool responsive sites. We're going to also learn code components, and if you're worried that, wait, code? I don't know how to code. Don't worry. It's super easy to use code components in Framer, and it can really take your sites to the next level. So I'm going to show everything step by step. We're going to also see how we can add videos inside of Framer to our sites. We'll also use components for animations, but also for reusability and also for optimization a little bit later. We're going to also add effects to our sites to make them a little crazier, right? Some appear effects and stuff like that. We're going to also do phone optimization, of course. So when you have your little phone in your hand, your site will actually look great on it. We're going to also take a look at the key to creating creative effects in Framer, such as this little thing that we have, even in the hero, but also like here, if you scroll down, this crazy thing, the background, the text and everything. So we're going to learn the key to that. And what else we have here? Responsive navigation, of course, we're going to do that, and a footer. So as you can see, we have a bunch of things. Again, I don't know why I'm giving away all this knowledge for free, but I guess we should just get started. You can also see that we have a few assets here, like the video that we're about to use, some logos and icons and lines. So these are some useful assets that you can also use when you're building this. So as you can see, by default, when we open a Framer project, we just see this, the desktop breakpoint, and it is white. Now for our site, it is going to actually be black. So on the right panel, we can go to the styles and just set it to black. As you can see, it just changes the color, super easy. Now let's see what else we have to do in order to create this site. Well, we have to add a bunch of elements. I think we have to start with a small little step. Maybe we can add this text layer. Okay, so a new way to build. Let's do that. How do we add text? Super easy. On the top, we can click the little text tool, or we can also press T on our keyboard, and this will also highlight the text tool. And now we can click within the desktop breakpoint, and we can write a new way to build. You'll notice that maybe your text is not visible because it has black color. So you can just click away and then select this text layer that you just created. And on the right panel, you can switch the color from black to white. Great. So now you have a little text layer, and you can also preview your site by clicking here or here in the top right, the little play buttons. And you can see that now we have a website that basically just has a text layer on it, a new way to build. This is great, but not really the website that we have here. So let's do something else. Well, we have to make sure that this text layer is a little bit larger and has a different font. We can adjust all that on the right panel. We can change the font, for example, to, I think it was Special Gothic, but the expanded version. And we can also increase the size to 96. And we can also change the width to fixed, and we can just make it a little bit smaller. So it is going to break like that, a new way, and then in the next line to build. Pretty good. I think these lines are also a little bit closer to each other. So what we can do to decrease the space between these lines is to go to the right panel and adjust the line height. So I'm going to probably set it to, well, I don't remember what I used, but maybe 0.9 or 1 will do. This is pretty good. We have the first, element on the website. We can add a few more. So we also have this smaller text here, Earth is your platform where ideas become real. We can also just add that. So again, press T on your keyboard, click here and start writing. So Earth is your platform. We can also just make this a little bit smaller. So it's going to be 20 pixels. And here we're also using a different font. We're using Special Gothic, and not the expanded version, but the simple Special Gothic. And the weight is going to be medium here. So what is the exact text? Earth is your platform where ideas become real. We took care of the rest. And then we have all that's left for you is to build. Okay, lovely. We can again do the same here. We can just set the width to fixed and we can just make it a little bit smaller. And then we can position it here. You can see that again here, the line height is not really cool. We have to increase it. So I'm going to do that here on the right panel. It's probably going to be 0.5 or sorry, 1.5 or 1.4, something like that. Okay, pretty great. We also have these little buttons that we can also create really easily. We can just maybe duplicate this text layer. You can do that really easily by pressing the Option on your keyboard and then click and drag. Super easy. So we have one get started. And here what we need on the width is basically a fit content. Fit content means is that basically the width will fit the content within the text layer. So, if we have get started written here, it's going to be, 100 pixels. But if we have more written here, the width is going to expand. Great, so get started. The size will be, 18 maybe. And then in order to make sure that it is actually having this white background, we have to do something new. We have to create our first frame because that's the only way to give it a background color. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to either press F on our keyboard and draw a frame here. Or what we can also do is we can right click the element that we want to add the frame around and just click Add Frame. Pretty good. You can see that on the left panel, Get Started is now wrapped inside of this frame. Now we can rename the frame to Button. And this is pretty good. We can make the button frame a little bit larger and we can give it a fair color on the right panel. It's going to be white, but then the text will have to be black, of course. Now you can see that this is pretty good. However, if we take a closer look, we start writing a little bit more inside of this button and it will not really be cool because the button frame is not really adopting. It's not getting larger or smaller when we have, fewer text. So how do we fix this? Well, this is where relative positioning comes in, because in order to make sure that this button frame adapts to the size of the element within, this layer here has to be a relative. And in order to set it to relative, as you can see, we cannot set the text to relative. In order to set it to relative, we have to set the parent, which is the button, to a stack. Now it's just a simple frame. In order to turn it into a stack, we have to go to the right panel, and you'll find the layout here, and you can just click that. Seemingly nothing has happened, however, the text layer within is now relative, as you can see on the right. And basically that's it. Now we can set the button width to fit content instead of fixed. And now you can see that it smartly fits the relative element within. And this is really great, and this will be sort of like a base for our responsive behaviors inside of Framer. Because, for example, now if I remove this additional text here, you can see that this button frame automatically adopts, which is really great. Also, if I start like duplicating this text here with Command and D, it is actually not, it's not really adopting because we only set the width to fit content, the height is still fixed. But we can learn a new thing here because I duplicated, and you can see that the get started, the two text layers are now placed right below each other. The way we can set them to horizontal directions so that they are placed right next to each other is by going to their parent, so the button frame, which we turned into a stack, and change the stack or the layout properties on the right panel. You can see that they are right here, and we can set a bunch of things such as the direction here. So if I say to horizontal, now you can see that these are right next to each other. And again, the width is nicely adapting. Pretty great. Now the height of this button is going to be 50. And you can also see that if we take a look at this button here, we have some space on the left and the right side of the text. So you might be wondering, how do we create that? Because now we have the width on fit. If I want to add more space, I have to set it to fixed and make it larger, but then again, it's not going to adopt. So what is the solution here? Where it's super simple, we have to keep the width on fit content. And we're going to have to again use the layout properties of that button stack on the right panel, because we also have padding here. And if we click this little button, we can change the padding per side. And I can just set the right and left padding to a little bit larger value. Maybe it's going to be 20 or 18, and on the left as well. So now with that, as you can see, I basically recreated the same button that I have here, and it's fully responsive. I can have different text here, and it's going to nicely adapt, which is really great. Now we could simply just duplicate this button and write explore builds here, but we're not going to do that, because for something like this, a reusable element, we usually use components. So let's turn this button into a component. I'm going to right click it, create component. You can also see that there's a shortcut for this, Option Command and K. I really recommend you using these shortcuts because it really speeds up your workflow. Create component button. Okay, so you can see that now we are in a little bit different environment. This is actually the component canvas. This is where we can create hover states or add new variants to our components. In this case, we actually want to create a variant, because one variant of the button component can be the primary, as you can see. And if we click here, we can create a new design where we can, create the secondary design of our button. So I also named it secondary. And here I'm just going to decrease the fill color transparency to 15 and change the text color to white. Basically, that's it. Now I have this button component, and I can just, again, press down Option on my keyboard, drag it here to duplicate, And then on the right panel, I can change the variant to secondary. Pretty great. However, it says the same thing, get started. But if you remember, it should say explore builds on the secondary. What do? We click within this and just change the text here? Not really, because it's going to change everywhere. This text property here has to be a variable that we can change per component instance. So I want to be able to set different text on this instance and this one right here. The way we do that is we go within the component, and on the primary variant, we select the text layer, and on the right panel, we go to content. It has this little plus button here, which basically means we can turn it into a variable, and we do that. We create it or turn it into a plain text variable. We can just name it here label. And as you can see now, if I go back to this page and select this other button on the right, now I have a property called label on the right panel. I can just write explore builds here. Lovely. Okay, this is great. We also want to make sure that these buttons are clickable, so we have to give them a link. That's going to also have to be a variable that we can change per instance. So that's going to also be a variable. The way we add links in Framer is really simple. We just select the frame. In this case, it's going to be the primary variant. And on the top right, we click the link to and turn it into a variable. That's it. Now, if we go back, we'll be able to add the link here on this property. I'm not going to add the link now because I don't really have links here, but yeah, that's how you can add links if you want to. Okay, so at this point, we have a few elements on the website. So let's just take a look at the roadmap here to see what we covered so far. Now, we haven't covered breakpoints yet, but just wait a minute. We haven't covered size structure. However, we already covered absolute positioning and relative positioning. So we kind of know what each one does. So I'm going to just set it to done. And we're going to now go on to breakpoints and size structure, because you can see that here, if we preview this website, it's not really going to look cool. I mean, everything is here in the top left. And if we start adjusting these positions, you might be like, okay, it's going to be a little bit better. But then you just notice that it got messed up even more. So in order to have sites in Framer that are actually nice, responsive, we have to do some extra structuring. And we also have to use breakpoints to make sure that it looks great on all devices. Now, if we go here and we take a look at this design, we can see that basically on websites, everything is within a box. So you can see, for example, this whole thing is a box. Within that, this thing is a box. This is also a box, but this is also a box. Now, this is also a box. This here is also wrapped in a box. This is also a box. And these boxes are actually frames inside the Framer. So the way we structure elements is we are just wrapping them in frames over and over again. So that's what we kind of have to do here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just basically create the usual size structure that we have on websites. First of all, we usually have a main container on the site. So we can add that really easily by just drawing a frame here and then pressing Command and X and then pasting it within the breakpoint with Command and V. Now you can see that this is, again, I can just freely position it, which basically means that it is absolutely positioned here on the right panel, which is not really great for responsiveness, honestly. So we have to turn the desktop breakpoint into a stack in order to set this frame to relative position. So I'm going to click the desktop breakpoint, and on the right, I'm going to turn it into a layout or stack. Now, seemingly everything got messed up, but do not worry, everything will be all right. we'll select the desktop breakpoint and we'll set the direction to vertical, and then the distribute to start and the gap to 0. This is really important. This is basically the structure that we'll usually use. Okay, so this frame that we added, this will be the main, which basically means it is the main container on the website. I can also just reorder these because now all of them are relative positions, and yeah, I can just reorder them really easily. However, I can no longer position them anywhere. You see, I cannot just put it here. So this main will be on the top, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna set a width on this that is basically filling up the available space, because right now if I go into preview, you're gonna see that if I have different widths, it's not really adopting. This white frame here is just staying on the fixed width value. So if I set the width to fill, you can see now it is nicely filling up the available space, which is pretty good, and this is what I need. I can only do this because the element here, the main white frame, is actually relative positioning, or uses relative position. If it was absolute, I could not use width set to fill. So within this main, we're gonna have all the sections. But in order to do that, the main also has to be a stack. So on the right panel, layout will be added, direction will be vertical, and distribute start, gap 0. Perfect. So I'm gonna remove the fill color here, make this main a little bit larger, and then I'm gonna draw another frame within. I'll rename this to section, and then set the width to fill, and then I will turn this into a stack as well, and I will remove the fill color here. Great, so I'm gonna make everything a little bit larger, but you can see things start cropping here on the bottom. It's because the desktop breakpoint is not set to fit height, which is really important. We have to set fit height, so it will always adapt to the content that we have on the site. So if we add new sections or new, I don't know, text layers or whatever, it's gonna nicely adapt. Perfect. So now what I can do is I can just add these elements that we created. I can just select all of them by pressing now Shift on my keyboard and clicking all of them. Then I can just press Command and X on my keyboard. This cuts them. And now I can select the section frame here and I can put them within with Command and V. Pretty good. You can see now they are horizontally positioned. This is because the section frame here uses horizontal direction, but I can just set it to vertical. Cool. Okay, so now what I have to do is I have to set the main to fit height, because it will have to fit all the sections within. So I'm going to use fit here, and the section will actually be using height set to viewport. So as you can see, it is now 100 VH. You might be wondering, what is 100 VH? It is a value that always gets 100% of the given viewport. So if we, for example, have a larger monitor which has larger height, it will adopt it. If we're looking at a smaller device, again, 100 VH will always adapt to that screen size. Okay, so this is great. We have a bunch of elements within the section. What we could do here is we could just make sure that these two buttons are right next to each other, because of course these are great, like these need to be right below each other, but these two need to be right next to each other. If I set the section to horizontal, that is not the fix. So again, what we have to do, I already told you, we'll have to wrap everything in a frame. Everything will be framed. So what we do is we select both of these buttons and then right click and we add them into a stack. And notice how on the left panel, now we see the two buttons are wrapped in the stack. And we can just name the stack to buttons. So we know that, okay, the buttons stack wraps the two buttons. And I can just go to the right panel and switch direction to horizontal. So now they are right next to each other. Pretty good. So now what I can do is I can just set the text layer on the top to fill width. I can set this text layer also to fill width, so it's filling up the available space. And what I can do in order to get these two buttons to the left side of this button stack is I can set the distribute from center to start. So now, as you can see, we have a very nice little structure here, which is actually responsive. If I go into preview, you're going to see that I can resize this and everything is nicely adapting. However, you can see if I put it to full screen, everything is just on the left side, which is not great. Like, I don't really want to see this. I want to see something like this. As you can see on the original, we have this contained to sort of like a max width, as you can see in the center of the screen. So how do we do that? Well, we just have to make sure that within the section, we actually have another like wrapper frame. So all of these elements here, the two text layers and the buttons, are wrapped in a stack. So I'm going to select them and I'm going to add another stack here, which is going to be called content. So this content frame has the fill width. However, it also has max width. So on the right panel, I'm going to add max width here. It's going to be 1400 pixels. Now you're going to see that it will still fill up the available space. However, as it reaches 1400 pixels, it's not going to grow further, which is excellent. This is what we need. Great. So now at this point, we can sort of like just position everything where they need to be. So on the top left, we have the text, and on the bottom left, we have this sort of like little group, which is the text and the buttons. So I think this already kind of tells you that this has to have a frame, right? Because we have to group them together. So let's do that. I'm going to select the text layer here and the buttons stack, right click and add stack. By the way, Option, Command and Enter if you want to be a little bit quicker. But yeah, we're going to just call this on the left panel to, I don't know, text plus buttons. And you can see that it's a little bit like smaller here. So what we can do with this text plus buttons is we can add a max width to this. It's going to be fixed. And as you can see, as I decrease this, it's just adding this max width, making it look a little bit better. To make sure that it's on the left side, I can select the parent, which is the content stack. And I can set the alignment here to the left. Great. Now, this content frame will have to fill up the available space within this hero section. So I have to set the height to fill like this, which is really good. Now the content is actually filling up the space, but still the text is not really here, the age 1, and also this is not here on the bottom left. So to make sure that they are positioned like that, we have to do something really interesting. We have to select the content stack, and on the right panel, we have this distribute property, which we can set to start, but then everything is on the top. We can set it to end, then everything is on the bottom. We need space between. This way, the first item in the stack, which is the text, will be on the top, and the second item will be on the bottom. If we had another element, it would be just in the center. So as you can see, everything is like spaced out evenly. Great, lovely. Okay, so within, I think this content frame, we're gonna have like padding, maybe 56 pixels. So you can see we have some breathing room around the edges, and it's already pretty good. Pretty good, it looks really nice, and you can see it's absolutely gorgeous, responsive, everything we need. Okay, so as you can see, we already covered breakpoints. We also know about the site structure that we need to use to make sure that our sites are nicely responsive and nicely structured. It will also have, by the way, with responsiveness later on to make sure that we can optimize it easily. Now take a quick look at how we can use code components, because it's actually easy and it can just help take your sites to the next level. So basically, the interactive globe in the background that we can see here, it's actually a code component. but you don't need to know how to code and stuff like that, because you can always just go to Framer.University. It has a bunch of resources and you can just search for different resources here. These are like components and remixes that you can reuse in your own projects. So if you search for 3D globe, you're going to find a component here and you can just copy it into a project. But you're going to also, if you remix this project already, if you go here to the assets panel, it's already going to be here under the Framer University folder. And you can just go here to 3D globe and just drag and drop it here onto the canvas. And you can see code components just allow you to can add these crazy, I don't know, elements to your site. Now we just have this here. It's absolutely amazing. However, we have to, position it in a way that it's in the background like this. So let's do that. Now I'm going to wrap it in a frame, of course. So I'm going to right click and add a stack. And I'm going to just call this stack globe wrapper. And here, what I'm going to use is absolute position, because I want to fully center this within this content frame. So I'm going to set it to absolute position, and then I'll center it with Option H and Option V. And I'll also make sure that all of these pins are actually deactivated. That's also really important. Now, I still want to have the responsive behavior where the height and the width is actually changing depending on what we have on the viewport. So if the size of the screen is smaller, it's nicely adapting and stuff like that. So in order to do that, we can use a width in relative units. So 100% can be applied, and for the height, let's use 300%. So as you can see, now we wrapped the globe in this large globe wrapper. And now within this globe can actually have width set to 1000 and the height will also be 1000. So now the ratio is 1:1. And we can now lock onto that ratio by clicking this lock. And now I can set the width to fill. Pretty good. And I can select this globe wrapper frame now, and I can set the direction to vertical and the distribute to end to make sure that it's sitting on the bottom. Absolutely crazy good. Now, I forgot actually one thing is that this right here and this on the bottom will have to be in different frames. So this will kind of be one like row and this will be another row. So let's quickly create that. I'm going to select all of these elements here. These right here, the text, the globe wrapper, and the text plus buttons. And I'm going to wrap them in a stack. I'm going to call that row. Great. Now, as you can see, since I wrapped them in a stack, everything got relative position within, which is slightly annoying because we have to reset the globe wrapper to absolute position. And we have to, again, set it to like center it with Option H and Option V. But now you can see this row is like kind of behaving in a weird way because the height is not set to fill. So we just have to set the height to fill and it will be good. Then I don't know what is going on here. Yeah, it seems like that the globe wrapper is no longer having the height set to 300 pixels, 300%. So I'm going to do that. Now, as you can see, it's sitting on the bottom really nicely. And I'll also have to make sure this row here has the left alignment and the space between distribute, that we already set up on the content frame, but now they're wrapped in this other stack, which is the row. And that's why we have to kind of add those properties again here. Okay, this looks pretty good. However, the globe is supposed to be below the text. So how do we do that? Well, let me introduce you to a new property, which is called z-index. Now, if you have a bunch of elements here in Framer, you cannot really just simply position them like or layer them like this. As you can see, in most like design tools and stuff, you can just, I don't know, set the text and buttons here, just place them higher above the globe wrapper. But as you can see, it doesn't really make a difference. So what we do instead is we make sure that the text plus buttons has a larger Z index than the globe wrapper. So the globe wrapper can have Z index 1, as you can see on the right panel, and the text plus buttons, as you can see, doesn't even have a Z index. I have to edit here next to styles. I can just click plus here and Z index, and I can set it to Z index 2. So now you can see that the text is actually over the globe, which is exactly what I need. Lovely, okay. You can see though that the globe that I have here looks a little different. It's kind of like, I don't know. It has a little bit more like contrast with the text. We can actually read the text, and it has like darker areas and stuff. So the way that's created is I added like mask here to the globe on the right panel. So I selected the globe component, and on the right panel I added mask, and I just like started masking it in a way that, you know, around the text it is actually a little bit darker like this. But I cannot only add the mask here on the right panel, I can also like tweak the properties of the globe. Like I can change the colors here on the dots, and I can add like different markers, because you can see, for example, this one is Hungary. It's highlighted here. You can actually add different markers here. So you can fully customize this globe, but I don't want to like waste time with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go to the home, and you can also do this if you want to speed up your workflow. Just go here to home and select the 3D globe here, and just press Command and C, and then back here just press Command, Shift and V while your globe here is selected, because that way you can replace your globe that you had here with this other one from the finished design. However, make sure that the appear effect is removed, because we're going to add that later. We're going to learn how to do that step by step. Great. So now we have the globe in the background. It has all these little like masks to make sure that it has these darker areas, and the properties here are set up perfectly. But again, feel free to tweak this if you want to. Now, pretty good. We have a pretty decent design here. Let's just take a look at the original. Okay. I think one other thing that we could tweak is the... Actually, let me think. Okay. So as you can see, maybe you cannot see it, but here we actually have a little background color on this part. And we could add that background color to the row frame. But as you can see with that, we wouldn't have the space that we have there, right? So here you can see this is the colored part, and we have some distance here. So in order to like kind of fix this, we're going to just remove the padding 56 from the content frame, and we're going to just add it on the row. Basically, that's it. 56 on the row. Perfect. This is what we need. Now you can see we have this colored section, and we have the space here, which is perfect. However, this is of course not the color that we need. So the row will instead have a gradient. On the top, it's going to be very dark. So I'm going to just pick this bluish color. I'm going to set it to something like this, and then set it to 0 transparency. And then on the bottom, I'm going to have the same color. And maybe I'm going to like tweak it a little bit, make it a little, I don't know, something like this could work. As you can see, it's really like a subtle color, nothing too crazy. Great, this is cool. Interactive globe, text on the top. We have some stuff here as well. However, we could make sure that here, there's a little more space between these. Maybe 24, maybe a little bit more space between the buttons as well, 16. Yeah, I think that looks great. Okay. So now I think it's time to see how we can add a video, right? Because we have not covered that. So the video will actually be positioned here. So I think you can already kind of guess that these two are going to be in the same group. So they have to be in the same stack. It's going to be set to horizontal direction. One element will be on the left and one element will be on the right, which is going to be this video component. So let's do that. So in order to start creating this, well, first of all, we just noticed something. I want to select the text, but I cannot because I'm just clicking the globe wrapper because it is an absolutely large element here, which is over everything, it seems like, and I just cannot select the text. So to fix this, I'm just going to right click the globe wrapper and lock the layer. You can also just press Command and L. And now I can just select the text. As you can see, I can no longer select the globe wrapper, which is pretty good. So I can just select the text here, right click, add stack. And now I have this stack, which I can like name top line. This will be on the top, on the top, so top line makes sense. One little thing I noticed is that the text is being cropped because of this top line. We can just set the top line stack on the right panel to overflow, not hidden, to visible, because overflow is basically, the overflowing part. So you have like a stack, you have stuff within, and the stuff is actually overflowing, so it's larger than the wrapper frame. So if overflow is set to hidden, these overflowing parts will be hidden. If the overflow is set to visible, then these overflowing parts, like this part of the Y, is now visible. Great. So, okay, I think we can just add a video within the top line, right? So how do we add the video? We just go to the insert panel, top left, search for video, and we can just drag and drop this. Great. So we have this video. We can press Command and X to cut it and put it on our clipboard. We can just select the top line and Command and V here. Perfect. Now it's within the top line stack. Text is on the left and the video is on the right. For the video, I want to have 4:3 ratio. So I'm going to set width to 4, height 3. You might be like, Nandi, that's a bit too small. And you're right. However, what I can do is I can now lock onto this aspect ratio and then set the width to larger. I don't remember what width I use, so let me quickly check. It's 340. So let's just use that, 340. And you can also see that here, it's quite weird. We probably need a little bit more space between these, something like this, like, I don't know, 64 or something. So basically I'm just adjusting the gap inside of this top line stack. You can also set it here on the right panel. To make sure that this is aligned to the top, we can just set the top line stack again to alignment to the top. Easy. Great, so the video will be playing here. You can find the video here actually. So at this point, you can just press Command and C and then paste it here onto the video, or replace the video by Shift, Command and V. That's actually very weird. I don't know why it does it, but you will just have to set 340 FR, if you also see this, to 340 pixels, okay? Now I'm not going to do this. I'm going to actually show you how to upload the file if you have that, but you don't have it, so you can just copy it and do it how I just showed you how to do it. But if you have the file, you can go to the right panel of the video component, go to upload, and you can just choose the file here. Now, I think I'm going to just click choose file. You can see this opens my Finder and I can select the file here. Teaser trailer. Perfect. It will be uploaded, and you can also see that we have a property on the right panel of the video component, which is called poster, and it's set to yes. This is really important. This is an image that we see while the video is loading. So it just improves performance on your site, so you should set the poster image. You may be wondering, what should the poster image be? It's just the first frame of the video. How do we get the first frame? Let me show you. So you just have to open your browser and search for extract first frame, or video frame extractor, something like this. And then again, you just have to upload your video file here. I'm just gonna drag and drop here. And then the setup that you need here is number of frames to extract is 1, distance is 0. Then you click extract, and here's the first frame. You can just right click, copy image, and back in Framer, you can go here to image and press Command V. Lovely. You can see we have a bunch of other properties as well, like playing, of course, has to be yes, loop, yes, cover, fit, controls, hide, muted, yes. These properties are pretty much okay. So now if we preview, you're gonna see that this is nicely playing on the top right, which is pretty good. However, I kind of want to make sure that the text here will always be breaking in a way that this is the top line and then the to build is below. So to do that, I can just click within the text and just make sure that here we actually add a line break by pressing Shift and Enter on our keyboard. This way, we'll always have a line break there. So if I go into preview, now you can see that it's nicely breaking into 2 lines here. Now on the original, we can see that this is not just a simple video component playing here. It has some text here on the bottom, and we also have this like play button here. And when we hover over, we have a little like bouncy effect on the play button. And yeah, it's just pretty cool. So yeah, let's build this with components. So we're gonna just again wrap the video in like a stack in a frame, because again, everything is a box. So right click, add stack. And here we're gonna set the stack to fit content. And actually we're gonna set it to fixed. So fixed width 340. And then the video within will be set to fill. And then the stack will be called video component. And then the direction will be vertical, because then if I add a text layer here, so press T and click here, just write new, we can set these. So by the way, because we set the video component to vertical direction, now this text layer you can see is on the bottom. If the video component stayed on horizontal, we can see this is what we would have seen. Okay, so text properties, I think we have 14 maybe. Special Gothic. Well, I don't remember what I used. So let me just quickly take a look. I think it's a different font. I think it's the condensed version. Yeah. Okay, we can do that. No problem. So it is going to be the Special Gothic condensed. And we're gonna also have another layer. So just duplicate it with Command and D. We just launched. This is gonna be a different color. So I'm gonna just set this color style here, which is actually gray. So now I can select both of these text layers, right click them and add a stack. Again, why? Because I want to place them right next to each other, so horizontal direction will be activated. And I think you already know what we're going to do here in order to achieve this look where the new is on the left and the V just launched on the right. We're going to have to set the distribute to space between. Yes, exactly. We also have a little dot or like square next to the new. So let's also add a little frame here. And then wrap the new and the frame in the same stack. Perfect. Set this stack to width fit. And I think that is it. We can adjust the gap within the video component to make sure that it's pushed away a little bit more. And I think that's all. That's all we need here. Yeah. Now we want to have some overlay here over the video and then the little play button. In order to do that, we have to wrap the video in another stack. So right click, add stack, and we're going to just call this video wrapper. Within, we're going to create an actual frame. This frame will be set to absolute position because we want to overlay it over the video. So absolute position, and we're going to pin it to all sides. With these pins, we can make sure that this layer will basically always stick to the sides where we activate the pin with that distance value that we set here. So for example, if I set 10 here, it means that it stays 10 pixels from the left side at all times. So it's responsive. The right pin isn't activated, which means that it doesn't care about the right side, sorry. So the left will be set to 0 and the right will be set to 0. Basically, all sides are pinned and set to 0, so it just fills up the available space. This frame will actually be set to, or sorry, renamed to overlay, and we can set like a darker, like gray color here, and I can set maybe even darker, something like this. And I can set the transparency to maybe, I don't know, 25%. I'm going to lock this overlay so I cannot select it. And then I'm going to draw a little frame here. It's going to be maybe 50. I'm going to again set it to absolute position, hit Option H and V on my keyboard to center it. And I'm going to also round the corners on the right side like this. Perfect. It actually has to be on top of the overlay. Right now it isn't, so the z-index has to be increased, as you can see, and it's going to be gray again, something like this, and it's going to also be transparent slightly. So something like this, but let me check the, okay, this is what we see here, kinda, so maybe it has to be a little bit darker. It's going to be 90% maybe on the transparency, and we're going to blur the background because now we can see it's just simply transparent. We can blur the background really easily behind this element by adding a filter BG blur property to this. And if we don't zoom in too much, we're going to actually see that. So as you can see, as I increase the blur value on the right, the background is nicely getting blurred, which is a nice kind of glassy look. So maybe, I don't know, 3 for the blur is enough, but we can also set 4. And let me just check the size. I don't know, maybe it can be a little bit larger, like 64. So at this point, we kind of need a play icon, which we can draw because we are inside of Framer, which is essentially a design tool. So I can just click the frame, which I can rename to play actually, and I can press P on my keyboard. This brings up the pen tool, and I can just literally draw the play icon. It's that easy. Now I have the play icon. So on the right, I can remove the stroke. I can add a fill, which is going to be white, and it's going to be 100%. And I can round the corners. Now you might be asking how. Well, I have to double click, select all these points, and then the radius on the top right will be adjusted. So I kind of want to increase it to maybe 3, and then I can increase also the size slightly to kind of get what we have on the original. You can see the play icon is a very interesting one because if we scientifically center it with Option H and V, it doesn't really look centered, right? So we have to optically like balance it out. So we have to just move it to the right with the arrow keys slightly until we are like, okay, that looks centered. Great. Okay. So I think everything is ready that we need for this little component. So at this point, we have to turn it into an actual component so we can add this like hover state to it where the icon bounces and stuff like that. So let's turn it into a component. So I'm going to select the video component on the left, right click and create component. We already saw the component canvas. Here I can have the primary variant, which is going to be default. And then we can have another variant, which is going to be called hover. Now on the hover state, I want to change this text here to white. I want to change the overlay to transparency, maybe, I don't know, 80. And I want to scale this play button up slightly, maybe scale 1.2. Now we have these two variants and we can connect between them with an interaction to make sure that when I hover over this, we actually transition over to the hover variant and Framer smartly animates between them. I can select the primary here. I can click this little connector and I can connect to the hover. You're gonna see it will ask you the trigger, like is it happening on click, appear, mouse enter. Of course we need mouse enter because when my mouse enters this element, I want to go to the hover state. I can just click somewhere on the canvas, and as you can see now, this interaction have been activated. I can also see it on the top right. And if I now preview this, you can see I hover over, and indeed the overlay transparency changes and also the button scaled up. I can see it again if I reload, hover over, it does the action. However, as I leave with my cursor, nothing really happens. It has to go back to the default state, right? Yes, you're right. However, before we do that, let's just take a quick look at the actual effect that we have here, because it's not simply a scale up effect that we see on this play button. It's actually a little bounce, which is a small detail, but I think it will be pretty fun learning about these small details because, you know, these are the things that really take your sites to the next level. So make sure to pay close attention here. So we're going to actually be using a rollover technique here, which is basically, essentially we're going to be using another variant here. So I'm going to just duplicate the hover one with Command D, and I'm going to name it hover end. On hover end, we just scale the play button back to 1. That's it. It just goes back to 1. The background stays on this different transparency value. The text here also stays white. Everything is the same. Only the play scales back. You can see that now we duplicated it. It got the same interaction that we had on the hover. Now we have to remove this. We don't need it here. Now, what we want is when we hover over the default, we go to hover and we roll over to the hover end automatically. The way we do that is we connect from here, as you can see from the variant. By the way, pretty common mistake with beginners is that they are not connecting from the variant, but they are connecting from some layer within, which is not something that you need to do. Make sure that you're always selecting the variant and you're connecting from there. So we're connecting again, interaction, it's gonna be appear. So with appear, we can make sure that when the hover variant appears on the screen, it actually automatically goes to the hover end. Okay, so delay will have to be set here because it doesn't have to like instantly go to hover end because then we're not gonna see that it scales up. We have to wait a little bit to see that it scales up and then it will scale down because it goes to hover end. So delay will be 0.2. Okay, this is good. This looks really good. Let's take a quick look. So as you can see, as I hover over, it nicely bounces. It scales up and then scales down. Last thing that we have to do is to just click hover end and connect back from there to the default on mouse leave. Let's give it a final test. As you can see, it's perfect. Now what we can do is we can just make it a little more bouncier. So I can select the, actually I can select the play button here on the default. And on the right, we can go styles, transform, not transform, transition, sorry. And here what I can do is I can override the transition properties only on that specific layer, which means that it will animate differently. So now you can see that the animation plays out like this. I can just click here to preview it. I can make it a little more bouncier by increasing this bounce value. So maybe we have 6 and 0.5. As you can see now, it's much more bouncy. So now if I preview this, you can see it's a little more bouncy. Pretty good, pretty good. Okay, this is lovely. Last thing I want to do is I want to make sure that when I hover over the cursor, is actually the pointer one. So I just selected the primary variant. On the right panel, I added the pointer cursor. And also I want to be able to add a link to this element. So I'll also create a link variable, exactly how we did it for the button. So with that, the video component on the top right has been completed. However, we cannot hover over it. The hover effect is not working if we hover over this part. If we hover over a level, like, I don't know, we hover over the button, the play button, it works. Why? Well, because there is this like large globe wrapper that we create, and it's just over this video, which is blocking us from interacting with it. I know it's weird. In this case, we just have to set the globe wrapper to pointer events none. There is a property that basically says to the browser that, hey, this element is not interactive. Even if it's a button, but it has pointer events none, you cannot click it. So if I select globe wrapper on the right panel, I can set pointer events to none. And now in theory, even though it's over the video, it's no longer blocking interaction. I can, as you can see, hover over this really easily, and we see the little bounce on the play button and all the like transparency changes and everything. Really nice. However, we set the globe wrapper to pointer events no or none. I thought that we're not going to be able to interact with the globe, but it seems like we can, which is interesting. Okay. But in case you cannot interact with the globe, you can just set, I think I know why, because we copied it from the finished one and it's already added. But yeah, what we had to do here is we had to add pointer events auto to the globe. If this isn't added by default, it wasn't interactive because the parent got the pointer events none style, which means that all the elements within will also have it. So it's not interactive. So what I had to do is I had to override this property only on the element within that I want to interact with. So basically I just went to the globe, which is within the globe wrapper, and I set pointer events to auto, which means that, okay, now only this part will be interactive. Lovely. I can still interact with the video, can interact with the globe. Perfect. Okay, so we learned how to create animations, right, with components for the video component. So that's done. We also kind of know how to use components for reusability, because we learned that, you know, for example, we have this button here. It's a component and we're going to be able to reuse this because, you know, I'm going to be using this in the, you know, in the navigation as well. And it's going to be really easy to maintain this from this point, because whenever I change my mind, like, oh, actually I want to round the corners, I just go within the component and on the right, I round the corners. That's it. It's going to change everywhere where I'm using this component. As you can see here, I only have 2 instances. These 2, but you can see that the corner radius changed on both of them. Now imagine you're using this, you know, component like hundreds of times on your sites, or on your site, you just have to change the radius once on the main component, and basically it's updating everywhere. So basically that's components for reusability. Done. Now we have to learn about effects. Because you can see when we like land on this website, we see a bunch of like appear effects. It's not just an instant like loading effect that we have here. It's pretty boring, right? It is really nice. And we also have an effect here on these like looping logos. That's going to also be an effect. So let's try adding those. So in order to like make sure that these elements are coming in with an appear effect, it's going to be really simple. All I'm doing is I'm selecting the elements that I want to animate in. So essentially, I want to animate this text here. I also want to animate the video component. By the way, I'm pressing down Shift on my keyboard while I'm clicking. That's how I can select multiple elements. I also want to animate this part here, so this little block on the bottom left. I want to also animate the globe itself. What else? Oh my god, I just selected everything. So let me just do it quickly again. The globe, okay. I also want to animate the row itself. So I'm going to also select that. Great, so I think that's it. Now on the right panel, I can go to Effects and Appear. I can go to the Enter effect, and this is where I basically define how they're going to be coming in. So they are transforming in from the top or from the bottom. They are rotating, they're getting like faded in, you know, whatever. So let's define it here. The opacity is going to be 0, so you know they're initially not visible and they're slowly fading in, but they're also going to be offsetted to the top or to the bottom. So basically some elements are going to be coming in from the top, some elements are going to be coming in from the bottom. So I can just set the offset to maybe -10 for now, and then we're going to change this value per element a little bit later. Transition, it will be maybe 6. And then the bounce will be 0. I don't want to see any bounce, just a smooth, appear effect. Okay, the delay will also be set because you can see when I reload, things are not coming in instantly. We wait a little bit and then everything is like kind of coming in with a stagger effect. So the first is the text here, then we have the video, and then, all sorts of other elements. So the delay here will be 0.9. Now, I basically, you can see on the left panel, I'm applying this effect to all of the elements. You can also see that they get this little star. That basically means that now they have an effect. So all I have to do now is to override this effect on all of them to give them different delay values and different offset values. But now I can just take a quick look at how this looks at the moment. As you can see now, everything just comes in from the top at the same time. And this is already pretty cool, but we can make it better. Also, I just noticed that the text here on the top left, it's actually not an appear effect because you can see that the words are coming in separately. So that's actually a text effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the appear effect that I added. And on this, I'm going to add text effect. It's going to be per word, so I'm animating per word. And then the effect is going to actually be 10 offset to the top, so -10. You can also just click here to preview how it will look. Blur will be 0 and the transition will be 0.6 and the delay will be 0.06. So it will look something like this. And here the delay can be set here, so 0.9. This is going to be the first thing that comes in. Okay, so 0.9. Then I think we can animate in this text layer here and the buttons. So I'm going to select them. On the right, I'm going to go to Appear and into the transition settings. I'm going to set the delay to 15 maybe. Then I'm going to select the video here. I'm going to override the delay value to 1.15 was the previous one, so maybe here it's going to be 35. Then the globe. Let me just select the globe here. Okay, the video computer is no longer selected, only the globe. The delay here will be, I don't know, 0.4 maybe. And the time here will be much larger, like 2. It's going to be a little bit slower, like appear effect. And then what else? I think we also need, the row that's also animated. It's going to be delay 0.6 maybe. And then it's going to have 1 for the transition time. And one more thing I forgot is that here the globe and the text plus buttons frame will actually be coming in from the bottom. So this offset value will be 10 instead of -10. So they are offsetted to the bottom and they're coming in from the bottom. So now if I preview this, you can see this is the effect what we have. However, I think the button, the text plus buttons is still coming in from the top for some reason. So let me see why. I have no idea because it's set to 10 here. So maybe it just didn't update. It's still coming. It's still coming in from the top, which is very weird. Okay, so the globe is okay. So if I select the globe on the right panel, you can see it has the appear effect, has 10 offset. It basically have the same property on the text plus buttons, 10, and it's still coming in from. Maybe I just tweaked it. Sometimes, like, yeah, I usually leave these parts in the videos because you have to see the reality. I know that you're also run into weird like things and bugs. It's completely normal. Like, Framers is software. Softwares have bugs. It's normal. So what I did is I just tweaked the time here, set it to 0.6. Maybe now it's gonna kind of reset itself. It's gonna be coming in from the bottom, but no, it's still coming in from the top. Okay, then maybe I'm gonna try it one more time. Set it to -10 then. What happens? Okay, it's still coming in from the top. Yes, because -10 is supposed to be coming in from the top. But 10 should animate it from the bottom. Okay, still coming in from the top. Okay, guys, at this point, I cannot do anything about this. Hopefully for you, it's going to work. But yeah, we're gonna just go ahead and not care about this. Actually, one more thing we could check is that you remember how we added the effect, the appear effect to the row as well, to this large wrapper frame? I think that has the, yeah, it has the offset here. So that's moving basically everything in from the top to the bottom. So we have to set the offset here to 0 because basically on this frame, I just want to like nicely transition in the background color. So I think this will be the fix. So now, as you can see, everything is coming in from where they should be coming in. Text plus buttons is -10, 0, 10. Let's see. Guys, it's absolutely crazy. Why is it not working? I don't know. Some elements are just not. Like, this here is animated, the video. The globe is animated from the bottom. Why the text plus buttons is not animating properly? Again, I'm just gonna tweak some properties here on the transition as well. Time, delay. Let's set the offset to a little bit larger value so we can actually see it, what's going on. Okay, one more thing I'm gonna try. Sorry for the little debugging session. You can just skip ahead if you don't want to mess around. But one thing we can also try in these cases is we can reload the project because it just feels like a bug. So I'm gonna like right click here on the tab and a reload tab. And hopefully with that, we're gonna see a change. So I'm gonna again, just double check that the text plus buttons have the appear effect. It's animating it from the bottom. Let's see, and still not appearing. Okay, maybe it's because it is actually within the frame that has the appear effect with basically no offset. Maybe we have to set or place this like text plus buttons within another wrapper frame. So to make sure that we have like one layer between the affected layer and another affected layer. Let me just try that as well. I'm gonna add a stack here. I'm gonna set it to fill height, space between, and left alignment. I'm just gonna call it wrap. Let's see if it works. No, it doesn't. Okay, guys. then sorry, I'm gonna just move on. I have no idea what is wrong. So let's just set it to 10 and just move on with the video. So, okay, now we learned how to add effects to our websites to make them look better and to like add some, I don't know, appear effects. However, we also kind of want to add something that basically animates these logos here, right? So let's create that as well. I'm going to just draw a frame here and press Command and X, and I'm going to paste it within. Let me just see the left layers panel where I have to paste it. I think I have to put it within the content, and it's going to be below this row. It's going to be also called row, by the way. I'm going to set it to width fill, and the height is going to be okay for now, and the fill will be removed. Okay. So I'm going to just quickly check what was the height here, actually. It was fill height, okay. Actually not, it was 100 pixels. Great, I'm going to set 100 pixels here as well. And so then we have all of those logos. So I'm going to just go here to the left. I'm going to select all of them, Command and C, and paste them here. As you can see now, they're just right on top of each other. So I have to set the row to a layout or a stack on the right panel. So now they're nicely relatively positioned. By the way, if you're wondering where I got these logos from, it's a really cool plugin in Framer. You can press Command and K on your keyboard, search for logo thigh, and just launch the plugin, and you can search for logos and you can click them and they're going to be instantly pasted onto your canvas. So I'm going to select all of these now and right click, add a stack. But this I wrapped, just the logos in another stack. I can call this logo or logos. And I can add the effect on this layer. So on the right panel, I can go to effects and it's going to be called ticker. Now the gap here will be much larger, something like probably 100. And basically that's it. Now, if we go into preview, you're going to see that we have this nice, like, I don't know, ticker effect. The logos are just going from one side to the other. We can tweak the ticker effect by selecting it on the right. We can change the speed to 50. We can also change the hover to like 50. So when we hover over, it is actually slowing down a bit, which is pretty good. What we can also do is we can like make it draggable by setting draggable to yes, so that we can drag them. But I will not set that, so we'll set the draggable to no. We have one little detail here. On the left and on the right, you can see we have a little like fade in, fade out effect as they are disappearing and appearing. So we can do that really easily. We just have to create an additional sort of like frame, and we're going to have to overlay it on the left side and on the right side. So I'm going to just press F on my keyboard, draw a frame, I'll set it to black color, and I'll basically set a mask on it, and the mask will be rotated like this. So as you can see, we just created a dark overlay. I can also name it, and then just press Command and X and paste it within this row, Command and V, and then set it to absolute position and pin it to the left 0, and then deactivate the right pin, and the top pin will be also 0, the bottom will also 0. And I think we can just set it to like 100 pixels width. I think that's going to be fine. And I'm going to duplicate it by pressing Command and D. And then I'm going to also just set the right pin to 0, but then the left pin will no longer have to be activated. So now with that, I just pasted it to the right side as well. And here, of course, I have to flip the mask direction to make sure that it's now not masked to the left, but to the right. Let's take a quick look. As you can see now, these logos are nicely fading in on the right and left side of the sticker effect, which is really cool. Now, before we start adding crazier and crazier effects, let's just see how this looks on mobile, because phone optimization is something that we have to cover here. And this will also give us more insights on how exactly, breakpoints work. So now, as you can see, we only have one breakpoint, the desktop. In order to optimize this for tablet and phone, we have to add those breakpoints here on our canvas. So I can just select the desktop. On the top right, I can click breakpoint, and I can add the tablet and phone breakpoints here. You can immediately see that the design is completely messed up. And if we wouldn't do any optimizations, it would basically look like this on phone, which is not really great. So let's see how we can actually optimize this. Since we already have a pretty decent structure, thanks to our site structure that we're using, we can optimize this fairly easily. So for example, here, I can just set the text size to a little bit smaller one, and I think that will basically, yeah. And also, we can make the video component as well, just slightly smaller, maybe 240, something like that. And that will basically do it. So we're good on tablet. However, on phone, it's completely messed up. I think on phone, there's no great way to show this video component, so I'll set the visibility to no. Then, what I'm going to do with this text layer, this big text layer in the center, is I'm going to set the size to fit. This basically means that it will always set the size to make sure that it feels within its parent. I also think that this size is too much. So I'm going to select this row stack, and on the right panel, padding will be decreased to maybe 24. I can also center the text here by aligning it to the center. And now, just to preview this, you're going to see that, again, the fit size on the text does this. You can see how the text size adopts in a way that it's always filling up that available space. Really cool. I'm going to also set this here to fill. It's already filled, pretty good. I'm going to center align the text, and I'm going to set both of the buttons to width fill. Okay, much nicer. Now, I think I can also make sure that this is a little bit more this large gap here isn't really nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set let me just select a few layers here let me actually collapse a few because you're not really going to see what I'm doing. So on the left, I'm going to first of all select the row. I'm going to set the height to fit content. And right now, as you can see, I'm doing it on the tablet, which is a mistake. So I'm going to try again. I'm going to do it on the phone. So as you can see, a row, it's going to be set to height fit content. Really great. I can just increase this gap value now, and it will be okay. Pretty good. Maybe 160. That should be good. Also, I can increase the padding maybe on the bottom, but I'm not too sure about that. Yeah, actually, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to reset this override. As you can see, all the changes that we make on different breakpoints, like on the phone or tablet, they appear as little overrides. Like, for example, now I set the height to fit, and you can see it's now highlighted with blue. It means that it now has an override. So it will no longer follow the changes or different settings I add on the desktop breakpoint to that specific property, because it's already overridden on phone. I can reset this override there, and it will now just keep following the desktop. Okay, what do we want to do here? We want to make sure that, actually, I don't really know why. Okay, so the max width here could be increased a little bit. But okay, so we can remove this. No, actually we can just, just set the max width to the original value. I just kind of want to understand why we have so much space here. Oh, the padding is 56. We already set it to 24. Maybe we overridden this somewhere. Okay, pretty good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just set some sort of padding on the top to make sure that we have a little bit more space on the top, but I'm actually not too sure if we need that. Maybe I'm going to just set it here on the row. So on the top, it's going to be maybe like 50 or 60, 64, something like that. And then in order to make sure that we can see a little bit better what is written here, I'm going to adjust the globe mask. So instead of masking it like that, I'm going to just slightly tweak it. Okay, I think this will be better. Okay, like that. Perfect. So now this is optimized. However, you can see this section is still pretty big and the logos are still like sitting right here, which is not nice. So what we have to do is we also have to set the content frame to fit height. Pretty good. And now the section that is right here, that will also be fit content height. Pretty good. And that's basically it. Now, as you can see, our design is nicely optimized across all of these different breakpoints that we have here. Desktop, tablet, and phone, they all look great. We can also see how it looks like in like reality when the screen size is like changing. As you can see, it's larger and it's getting smaller and everything is nicely adapting. Sometimes along the way, we see weird things like right now, because this is like aligned to the left, which is not great. And this is why we have to see if it's like actually working as we're adjusting the width, because you might see that it's pretty much okay on all breakpoints, but you can see it's actually not. So on phone, we have to select the parent frame of that element that was left aligned. So the left aligned element was the text plus buttons. The parent is the row. So probably the stack settings on this row is off. As you can see, yes, the alignment is to the left. We need center. Lovely. Let's give it another preview. I'm going to start decreasing this. And as you can see, it works perfectly. Okay. Pretty good. We can continue building this. We have the phone optimization, and now we can learn the key to all sorts of creative effects. So basically what we're going to be doing for this sort of like section of the video is we're going to be building this like other section on the website where we're creating this absolutely crazy effect on this connect text. As you can see, it's like doing this movement as I'm hovering with my cursor. And also we're going to add this like crazy background effect with like the letters and everything. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. So what I'm doing is I'm just going back to Framer. And I think what I can do is I can just duplicate the section that I have here already and just remove all the content from within. So I can just delete both of these rows. So now I have a completely empty content frame. I can just draw a frame within. I can name it a row. The content frame can actually have alignment to the center, and the row can have just transparent fill color or no fill color, and it will also be a stack. Okay, so the width here on the row will be fill, of course, and then the content will be fit content, and then the section will also be fit content. Great. So within the row, I think we can start adding these elements that will make sure that we have something like this. It actually has a fill color, sort of like a gray fill color. It has the lines in the background. Also these like animated like text, I don't know, ASCII background. And of course the text layers that are moving. So let's start adding those. First of all, the row has to have a fill color. So fill will be added here. And I'll just pick, can I just pick this color here? probably can. Boom, that's gonna be the color. Let's see how it looks here on full screen. Okay, perfect. This is what I need. But then we have these lines. So I'm just coming down here. You can see these lines are already pretty big. So just make sure to copy it to your clipboard, then paste it within here, within this row. And I'll make sure that this is actually wrapped in a frame. So right click and add frame here. Now the lines are wrapped. I can just name it lines. And I can make sure that it's absolutely positioned and it is centered with Option H and V, and none of these pins will be activated. So these lines are actually going to be dropped in opacity on the right panel. So it's going to probably be something like 0.15 or 0.20, something like that. But of course you can play around with different values. So now this is what we have. Pretty good. Now the next step is to add that little like text animation. But also let me just decrease this color on the background because I just feel like that's a little bit too much. Maybe something like this could work a little bit better. Yeah. Now the effect that we see here, and it's gonna be the part to, I don't know, the secret of like how we create these crazy effects on sites. We basically look on the Framing University website. So again, I'm just going to Framer.university and searching for background because you're like, oh, I want to create like a cool background. You can see I have a bunch of background components. So you can just pick one. And what I did when I was building this is I think I picked the animated pattern background and just copied it to my clipboard. And back in Framer, I can just paste it within this row frame. And I'll set it to absolute position and I'll pin it to all sides with 0 pins. Now you can see that my computer completely died and it's lagging. So we can set the preview to no, so it's not playing. And then also to make sure that it's a little bit like more performant, we can scale this up. So the letters are going to be slightly larger. You can also see that here they are a little bit bigger. So maybe 2 on the scale. What else? Well, I probably like played around with these properties here. So I think maybe easing was changed. Also the pattern, you can play around with these as well. And just find something that looks decent. You can also change the interval to maybe 0.4 or 0.5. And then we can see how it looks. But also one more thing I noticed is that we can remove the background color here. So we can kind of see underneath we actually have those lines. Okay, let's see. I guess as you can see, these properties are not really what we have on the original. So again, since I already like set it up on the original, I'll just copy it over. But again, on the right panel, we could change, you know, the color to like gradient. We could have, you know, white color here and then another color here, a little bit darker one. But I think, again, it's just a little easier to use the one that's already set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the home page and I'll copy this animated pattern background. And as you can see, it also has a mask, but I'll show you what that does. I'm going to go back here, select the animated pattern background here, and I'll press Shift, Command, and V on my keyboard. With that, I replaced the animated pattern background that we had here. And now we have this other one, but we see it in a weird way. I think we have to pin it to the bottom as well. Pin it to all sides. Oh, I kind of see what is wrong. Maybe that was the problem before as well. We should not place it within the lines frame. We have to put it on the rows level. Yeah, that's gonna be much better. Now let's take a quick peek. And as you can see, this is how it looks. Really cool. What we can do with this again is I just added this mask here to make sure that it's kind of like masked from the bottom. But Oh my God. Again, it's just super large. So I have to make sure that it's set to absolute position and pinned to all sides. So as you can see, now it's filling up the available space within the row. Okay, so finally we were able to set it up properly. So now, as you can see, we're just gonna have it here. Also, the performance is much better. It was quite laggy before because it was just ginormous. So now it's much better. So this is how we do these animated, backgrounds, and you can see how big of a difference they can make. And these are just code components that you can get for completely free from the Fame University website. So it's pretty cool, and you can use them on commercial projects, personal projects, anywhere. Now let's create the disconnect text. We have to make this row a little bit smaller though, something like this. And then I'm going to copy this text, paste it here, and I'm going to remove the text effect like that. And actually, I'm going to just copy the text and then create another layer, and I'm going to paste the text here like this. The reason why I did this, you might be wondering, because if we copy a text layer from like here, let's say, and we paste it here on the row, you might be like, oh yeah, we pasted it there, pretty cool, we're gonna be using this. The problem is that we also copied all the overrides that we edited here, or added to it here on the Fame Breakpoint. So as you can see, it's now smaller and like, I don't know, like it's set to size fit and stuff like that. The problem with that is that in this case, in this interaction, we might not need that. So that's why I'm just adding it to a new, like, completely newly created text layer, so it doesn't have all those overrides. So yeah, let me find that text layer, remove it, and then paste this one in here. Again, I'm just selecting these lines accidentally. So again, I'm gonna lock the lines like frames so I can no longer select it. Now paste the text here, and I'm gonna write. I'm again also selecting the component here, so I'm gonna lock that as well. I'm going to write connect here. You can see that here, the O is actually replaced with the logo of this Earth company. And you might be thinking, okay, how do we create the logo? Well, we create it inside a framer. So really simple. We don't want to mess around too much with the logo, of course. So we just press O on our keyboard, draw a little something here. Maybe it's going to be, I don't know, 46. I'm going to remove the fill color. I'm going to add the stroke. It's going to be black. And it's going to be width 2. And actually, let me just get it to white first so we can actually see it. Then I'm going to press Command and D to make sure that it's duplicated. Let me just collapse some of these layers on the layers panel so you can see what I'm doing. Now I have 2 of these ovals. I could just make it smaller, but now you can see it's making it smaller in a way that it's keeping aspect ratio. I don't want that. So make sure that the size on the right is not locked in terms of aspect ratio. So now I can just do this. I'm pressing the option on my keyboard, and it's nicely getting it smaller like this. We're making it smaller. As you can see, we have a few lines like this, maybe one more. So duplicate it again and just adjust these. And at this point, we can just select all of these, duplicate it again, Command and D, and rotate it on the right panel 90 degrees. And with that, we have created our logo inside of Framer. Really good. I'm going to select all of these now, press Command and G, and now they are grouped. We can move them together. Now I'm going to set it to black color, and I'm going to wrap it in a frame. Right click, add frame. I'm going to make that frame a little bit bigger. I'm pressing down Command, Option, and Shift on my keyboard. This is how I'm like making it larger in a way that it's actually like not messing everything up. I'm going to rename this frame to Logo Circle, and then the fill color will actually be white. It will also be rounded. And let me just see if that's what we have here. Actually, it's not exactly. It seems like that here it's the complete opposite that we have on the actual navigation. So let me just fix that. So the ovals are actually black, sorry, white. And this background is actually black. Okay, that's how it's gonna be. And then again, make this a little bit smaller. Like this. Okay, pretty good. Now I'm gonna copy this logo circle, Command and X, and paste it within this text layer. Now in order to do that, I have to wrap it in a stack. So I'm gonna right click it, add stack, and I'll set the width to fit content. Now I have the text stack, within we have the text, and I can just press Command and V here. Then I can set this to absolute position, make sure the Z index is a little larger, and I can move it over the O. And now I'll just make it larger. So I'll scale this up here, and I'll scale the inner logo as well. Pretty good. I'll set these to width 4 now. And then I'm just gonna realign it. And then at this point, we can remove the actual O from the text and replace it with a few spaces like this. Perfect. Now the connect text is actually gonna have a stroke. So on the right, I'm gonna go to text, stroke. It's gonna be width 4 and it's gonna be white. And the color will be black. That's it. Now the text that we created, the stack itself, will have to have Z index a little bit larger to make sure that it is actually over the lines and everything. So now that's the case. Perfect. So now we have this set up. But as you can see, we have a few more of these like text blocks or whatever. So we can move them in this weird way. However, before I do that, I'm going to set the row to fit content. So now it fits this text, but I also want to make sure that we have some breathing room around. So I'm going to set it to 56, probably. Is it larger? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to set it to like a little bit larger. Maybe 64. And on the sides, I'm going to just set 24. Lovely. Now I'm going to call this text 1 instead. I'm going to wrap it in a stack, right click, add stack. This stack that I'm wrapping it within is going to be called texts because it will house all the other text layers as well. So I think we're going to have in total how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So text 1, duplicate it. Since they are relatively positioned, they're going to be placed right next to each other. Easy fix. We just set one of them to absolute and press Option H and V on our keyboard to center it. And now it's over it. Lovely. This is going to be text 2. The Z index will be increased to 3. So it's like above the text 1. Text 1 had Z index 2. Text 2 has Z index 3. Text 3 is created by pressing Command and D to duplicate. Z index will be 4. Text 4 is created. Z index increased 5. Lovely. Okay. So now at this point, all we have to do is to make it move, right? But I also kind of want to add some spacer section on the bottom so I can scroll down even more. So I'm just create a frame here and paste it within the main. I'm going to remove the color and everything. I'll just set it to width, fill, and height the viewport. Okay, so now I'll be able to scroll a little more. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Now we need that little, like, you know, that secret, that little magic touch that makes it, I don't know, look better. Add that little wow effect. So I'm going to go again to framer.university and I'll search for the parallax floating component. Again, you'll see that this component is used in this setting on the demo page. You can see these little like moving images. But you always have to like keep in mind that these components can also be used in other settings. Like you can get creative with these and create cool little effects. So in this case, we're not going to be moving these little images around, but we're going to be using this component in order to add that effect to the text layers. I'm going to copy the component, and then back in Framer, I'm going to paste the component within each of these text frames. So I'm going to start with text 1, whatever, and it pasted it within the text 4. Okay, that's fine as well. This is an invisible component. We can just set it to absolute position, and that's it. What this does is it makes the element just float around as we are moving our cursor. And the element that is moving is the element that we're putting it within. In this case, we're putting it within text 4. So if I start moving my cursor around, as you can see, text 4 is moving. Absolutely amazing. However, it's cutting off. So you have to set the wrapper frame, the text to, you probably already know it, overflow visible. Yes. So text overflow visible. Lovely. Now I'll just paste this parallax floating within each of these text frames. And then all I have to do, because now they are kind of like moving together, so it's not really cool, we have to add different speed to each of them. So you can see that the elements that are the text here on the very top moves slowly. And as we're going back with z-index, like z-index 3, 2, 1, we're increasing the speed. That's how we get the effect. So z-index 4, it's going to be, let's say, 40. Then text 3, it's going to be, I don't know, 65 or maybe 70. Then it's going to be 100 and 120. You can also select all of the parallax floating components and set the smoothing to 70 so that the movement is going to be really smooth on them. So now, as you can see, this is the actual animation that we have, and it looks really, really cool. Okay, so we learned how to create these creative effects. Done. However, if you take a look at this on phone, not really great. And if you think about it, we cannot really hover on phone, so we have to do something about this. Actually, we have to remove the effect on phone, so it's just gonna have the text there and that's it. How do we do that? Well, first of all, we have to scale this whole thing down. So I'm gonna select the texts, I'm gonna scale it down. So where is scale? It's under transforms. Something like this, 0.5. Then I'm going to decrease the rows padding on the top and bottom. Maybe it's going to be 2020. Lovely. And then to remove the effect, all I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these parallax floating components. I'm going to set all of them to enabled no. And then it doesn't really make sense to show all of these additional text layers. So I'm going to set all of them to visible no, and just leave the text one on visible yes. So now it's going to be perfectly optimized for mobile as well. And now I think we can just add those little, like, I don't know, cards or whatever, like these text layers. It's basically just text layer and an icon to the bottom here. We're going to be using basically text layers and an icon for that, but it's going to be, I think, helpful to see how we can like structure components in a way that we can make them nicely reusable for all sorts of different cases. So to create this, I'm going to just go back and, well, essentially first I'm going to just duplicate this row with Command D. I'm going to remove all of these items from it and then just click or press T on my keyboard and type in Imagine. So this here will be special Gothic. And I think the size will be 20, weight will be medium, then the color will be white. And then I'm going to duplicate it, and then we're going to have the subtext here. and I'm going to paste it here. It's going to be 14 size. We got some additional spaces here by copying, so I'm going to remove all that really quickly. Really good. And that should be good. The line height will be maybe 0.45, and that's it. You might have noticed that when I'm selecting the text here, it has this like weird different colored text selection. Here we actually don't really have that. Let me quickly show you just a little side note here how to do that. I'm going to select the desktop breakpoint, and on the right I'm going to go to styles and apply the selection, which is actually, maybe it's not there, but it should actually be there. Yeah, selection under styles. And here I can just set the text color. So when it's getting selected, what's going to be the text color? It's going to be black. And what is going to be the background color? It's going to be white. And it's going to not be transparent. So now when I select text, as you can see, it looks like that, which is pretty cool because it just makes the whole site a little bit more branded, I guess. So now I have to make sure that these two are right below each other. So again, simple wrapping them into a stack, setting vertical direction, left alignment, and that's it. Then it's also, well, I'm not sure if, yeah, it's probably darker. I'm going to set this gray color here. I'm going to set both of them to width fill. And then we need some icons. So I'm going to just grab these. I'm going to paste them here. Now I have to make sure that I move them up because they need to be next to the Imagine. So I'm going to select all of these, the text, the Imagine text, and the icons, and I'm going to just wrap them in a stack. Then I'm going to set the direction to horizontal. It's already horizontal, so that's pretty good. I'm going to set the gap to maybe 12. And I'm going to hide 2 of the icons. I'm going to only show the one that I actually need here. Perfect. Maybe 10 gap is enough, actually. And I think that is basically it, right? Maybe we can decrease the space here or increase it. I actually don't know what I used. Maybe 10, actually, maybe 10 it is. Yeah. Okay, so I think we can just set this width to fixed to just kind of preview it with a smaller width to see how it looks. Okay, pretty good. I think this has sort of like a padding here, maybe 24. Okay, lovely. I think that's it. So at this point, we can turn this into a component. Right click, create component. We're going to call it card info or whatever. And somehow we have to make sure that if we start duplicating this, like 3 times and setting all of them to fill width, and the height will be fit, and then this row will also be fit height, and we're going to remove all the padding. So somehow here I can nicely customize it. Basically on each I want to be able to set different text and different icons. Now I have no idea why the icon is not visible, probably because it has the like these variables here, so you're probably gonna also see this. No worry, or don't worry, just select all of them, set them to visible yes, and then it kind of will just be resetted like that. It's because I copied it from a component I built previously, whatever. So now we have these icons here. What I can do with them is I can add them or connect them to a variable, so I can change them based or change them per instance. So for example, the first one, I can just set the visible property here, turn it into a variable. I can just name it, I don't know, aura. And then I can do it with the cloud. Here I can set it to no by default. The zap, same thing. Zap, no by default. And with that, what I can do is on these different instances, I can just select the component and just change which icon is visible. Set aura to no, cloud to yes. On the last one, zap yes, aura no. Lovely. Now we just need variables for the text. So create variable. It's going to be the name, I guess. And then this is kind of like the sub right here. Amazing. So now I'm going to just quickly copy and paste these. And as you can see, I can just replace the text here on the right properties panel of the component. And again, this just helps us to create these consistent components that we can then later reuse on the website. Because then again, we might change our mind and we're like, oh, actually we want to have the icon on the other side of the text. Well, you can do that really easily. Just like update it on the component, and it's updated everywhere, as you can see. And it just makes our life a lot more easier. So let's just move it back to the original position. Okay, I think that is it. Let me see if anything else is needed. I'm going to also preview it here. No, I think it's pretty good. Maybe we're going to add a max width to these text layers so they are not growing too large, but actually I think it's fine. So we're going to just keep it like that. Now we need a little optimization here on phone because we can clearly see that here, this is not really okay. So I'm going to just set this row to vertical direction. That's it. And you can see the magic of stacks here, because when it comes to phone optimization, sometimes we just click one button and it's optimized. Like we don't have to mess around with, I don't know, a bunch of other things. We just change one property and it's all good. Okay, so this is ready. Now, I think it's time to create the responsive navigation, right? Because we have a website, but it doesn't have a navigation, and that's not really cool. So let's do that now. You can see that here on the original, or like the already finished one, we have a navigation bar on the top, and it basically transforms into this phone version as we are like decreasing the viewport width. You can see here, it just changes to this menu. I can click that. It switches to close. I can click these here, and yeah, it's a nice animation and it just works, as you can see. So we're going to design this, and you can also see that it's fixed. Like as I'm scrolling on the site, it's not like it's scrolling away, it just stays there. So let's create that. You can see that we have created this main container that houses all the sections. Now, the navigation is not going to be within this main container. It's going to be outside of that. So I'm going to create a frame here, and then command and exit, and then paste it within the desktop breakpoint and move it here to the top. And I'm going to name this navigation. I'm going to set the position to fixed. I'm going to pin it to the top, to the left with 0 pins, and also to the right. And I'll set the height to 100. Now you can see it's kind of like hiding some of the stuff that we have here. So to make sure that doesn't happen, I can select the main, and on the top we can apply this 100 padding. So as you can see, it's nicely like pushed down so we can leave space for the navigation on top. This navigation will have black background color, and it will have a content frame within. But the navigation actually has to be turned into a stack, so I'm going to do it on the right panel. So now this frame I added within is actually relative, and I can set it to fill width, and I can add that nice max width of 1400 pixels to it. I can name it content frame, and this will also be a layout, and the height will be set to fill. The fill color will be removed. Now here I can start adding some of the elements that we have. You're gonna also, by the way, learn here the structure that you need for these responsive navigation bars, because it's really just one structure that you have to learn, and you can reuse that for all of your navigations that you ever build inside of Framer. So pay close attention here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just draw a frame here. For the logo, it's going to be 50 for the height, and this content frame will be aligned to the bottom like this. Now within this, it's going to be called logo. We're going to just find a logo and paste it there. boom, center with Option H and V, and set all of these colors here on the selection color to black. And I can just make it smaller. You see, as I'm making it smaller, the width of these strokes starts getting a little bit too much. So I'm going to set that width to 2 instead. So now we have the site logo. Super simple. We somehow have to make sure that it's on the left, but we're going to take care of that a little bit later. Let's first just add a little more buttons. So I'm going to copy this button here to get started. I'm going to paste it within the content frame here in the navigation. And now what I can do is I can select the content frame and set it to space between distribute. We already know this, and it just works here as well. Now we have some other things here, not just like get started, but it actually says login, sign up, pricing, and solutions. So we have login. Then we have sign up. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to say sign up. This is going to be secondary, but you have to see that now they are like they're not really how it is on the original. They have to be grouped here on the right side. So in order to do that, again, what we're doing is we're just wrapping them in a stack. Add the stack, and the gap between them will be 0, and the width will be set to fit content. And now I can just duplicate it even more, pricing and solutions. Pricing and solutions. However, you can see that here, the style of the buttons is a little bit different. So for that, we have to create another variant within the button component. And then this is also great. We created the component, the button, but as we go about designing the actual website, we can continue adding different variants to it if needed. So for example, now we have the primary and secondary. Now I'm just going to create a navigation style, Navi. And I can here set the fill color to 0, transparency, this one to gray, and then I can just create a hover state here where it is basically changing the color to white and this to 15 transparency. So now as I hover over, nicely changes, but I want this change to be instant, so the transition will be instant instead. So in the primary, I'm going to set transition instant. Yeah, you're asking why? Well, because everything I do in the primary will be applied to all of the variants. So I want the transition to be instant in all cases, because actually these should also have little hover states, as you can see here on the final one. So I don't know why I forgot to do it, but let's just create it here. As you can see, we can add the hover state by just clicking here. We can make it simple, add the filter, brightness, set it to, I don't know, something like 70 or 80%. And I can do the same on the secondary. Just filter, brightness, and 80. Okay, so now in theory, I can just set the solutions and pricing to the Navi. So now we have sign up, login, they have their nice hover states, and pricing and solutions also have hover states, and they are just styled a little bit differently. Lovely. Okay, so I think at this point, we can think about something really interesting, because in order to make this responsive, we have to add a few more elements. It's actually just a single element, which is going to be that little button that you click when you want to open the navigation and close it. You know, that little menu. And in order to make sure that we optimize it, we have to add that element already here on the desktop version and kind of hide it in a structure that we can use later to nicely optimize it. So the point is that many times in Framer, we start building something, but we cannot go into or jump into creating the component already or the optimization, because we need a few more elements here inside of this component that we'll need later on. Now, that element is actually called the menu close and open. So for that, I'm going to actually create another variant of the button. So I'm going to duplicate, I think, the secondary style, and this will be called just menu. And I will remove the content property here, and I'll just write like close or menu here. And I can just rename the variant to open me. And then I'm going to duplicate this, and this will be close me. I'll set both of them to fix the width. So the width is not going to be jumping when we're switching between them. And then this here will say close. Okay, perfect. So we have open me and close. Sorry, we have open me and close me. One says menu and the other one says close. So I'm going to copy this button. I'm going to paste it here. And we are going to set the variant to open me. And we actually have to wrap this within the same stack as the logo. And that's the structure that we need, basically. So I'm going to select the button and this logo, and I'm going to right click and add stack. This will be fill, width, distribute space between, and the button here will be set to visible no. So here on the desktop, of course, it's not yet visible. And now at this point, we can really go ahead and turn this into a component. So I'm going to just right click, navigation, and create a component. So as you can see, it already creates a bunch of variants for you because it kind of knows that you want to optimize this, but we can just delete this. We will do it ourselves from scratch. So desktop, let's just click here next to it, variant, and create the phone one. First thing, I'm just decrease the width so I can actually see a correct or an accurate preview of the phone here. And what we can do here is we can just set everything to vertical, so elements are positioned right below each other. So content frame, direction vertical, then this stack will also be vertical. This is actually, let me just rename this. This stack is for the actions inside of the navigation. So I don't know why it didn't. Oh, okay. It did rename it to actions. But let me also just rename this tag for the logo plus menu. Okay. So now we know everything just by looking at the layers panel. Actions, it will also be vertical and it will use fill width. And then the logo plus menu will be set to 100 pixel height. And then the alignment will be to the bottom, but we're going to already set it on the primary. So it's applied both on the primary component variant and on the phone. So as I set it to the bottom, you can see it also updated on the phone variant. Great. And then here I can set the button to visible yes. And so this here will be the phone open actually. So I'm going to rename it to phone open, and I'm going to set the height of this variant to fit content. As you can see, it's fitting the content, but for some reason it is not really working. And honestly, I have no idea why. Okay, now I know. Because the content frame within is not set to fit content. So we're going to set that to fit content as well. So now everything is okay. We're going to set these to fill. It's going to be a bit nicer. And the actual phone open will not only be height fit, but we're going to add a min height of 100 viewport. This makes sure that this in the open state is going to take up the full viewport. However, you can see that now it's centered. So we're going to just set it to vertical direction and distribute start so everything jumps to the top. Lovely. So this is phone open. And I can just click here to create phone close. So this is what we do here. We select the actions frame. We set it to opacity 0. I don't want to see it, but I also don't want to interact with it. So pointer events will be set to none, which means that even if I tap there or click there, I cannot interact with those layers because they are set to pointer events none. Then I can just set the phone close height back to fixed, and I can also remove the min height. And I can just decrease it to make sure that it matches this size. And basically that's it. I can make sure that here it says menu and here it says close me. Now, in order to add the interaction, what we do is we connect from this button. We always connect the interaction from the element we want to use as trigger. In this case, this button is the trigger. So we connect to the phone close. When we click close, we go to phone close. When we click menu, we go to phone open. We can test it here. Works perfectly. We can tweak the transition by going to the primary, to the right panel, transition. It's going to be 0.60 bounce. Now here, we're going to go back. As you can see, positioning and everything is messed up. So I'm going to set it back to 0 pins all around. Then the height is going to be set to fit content. Really important because sometimes it's going to be open, sometimes it's going to be closed. In order to make sure that the component follows this size, we have to set the height to fit content. And here on the phone, it's going to be set to phone close. That's it. Let's take a quick look. I'm going to start decreasing the size of the viewport, and at a certain point, it switches over. Now I'm going to open this, but you're going to see that it opens down and it looks great. However, for example, this element is over the navigation, which is weird because navigation should be over everything. So in order to make sure that actually happens, the navigation component always has to be set to z-index 9 or 10, which basically means that, z-index 10 is the maximum. So if it's set to 9, it's probably going to be on the very top of the website, or in terms of like layering. You can also set it to 10. I like setting it to 9 because in case I want to set something above the navigation for some reason, I still have like z-index 10 to use. Now let's take another look in the preview. I can scroll down, the navigation stays fixed. And if I decrease the viewport size, as you can see, menu shows up and I can open it down. Really good. It looks really good. Okay, pretty cool. So responsive navigation has been created. The last step to finish up this website. It's an absolute crazy video. Oh my God, cannot believe I'm putting this out for free. Whatever. So last step is to create the footer. Okay, let's do that as well. Okay, so I think we can just take a quick look at how the actual footer looks here. It's a simple one, nothing crazy. As you can see, we're gonna have some copyright info on the left and the logo, and on the right, a few links, and then a large text thing on the very bottom. So yeah, let's start creating these. So first of all, from a structural standpoint, where is the footer? Well, the footer is not within the main container on the website. It is actually placed outside of that, just like the navigation. So I'm going to just grab this frame that I already created. And you know what? I'm actually not going to do that. I'm just going to copy this section and I'm going to paste it within this desktop. So it's going to be outside of the main and on the very bottom of the website. We can call it footer. Now, let me just check something here. Okay, so this footer will not have all this content, so I'm going to just delete these. Okay, and yeah, I'm going to set the footer height to 50 VH, so it's going to be viewport 50 VH. I actually don't, maybe I actually don't remember if I set 50 VH, so let me just quickly take a look. And no, it's gonna be fit, okay. Okay, sorry. And it's gonna be just a fit. But we're gonna set it to fit a little bit later. For now, it's just gonna be fixed. Okay, so let's start adding a few of those elements that we need. So probably if we were talking about, the structure from like of the boxes and stuff, this is gonna be one large box. This is the actual section. Then this here, a row on the top. We're gonna have this in a box as well. And the box here, another box here, and then on the bottom, the text. Okay. So within the content frame, let's create a row on the top. Row, we're gonna set it to fill width, remove the fill color, turn it into a stack. We're gonna get the logo from the navigation, so let me just grab it. Logo, I'm gonna paste it here. I'm gonna also add the copyright information, so what it is, Earth 2025, all rights reserved. I'm gonna set it to special Gothic medium. I don't know if it's 12 or 14. I'm gonna use 12. And maybe the line height is gonna be 0.4. And we have to make sure that these are wrapped in the same stack. And they are set to start, vertical direction, and left alignment. Perfect, so we have the logo plus copyright. Then we also need these links here. So for that, we're gonna add another text layer. We're gonna say resources. Actually, I'm gonna just copy this text that I already created because it already has the right size. We might actually make it a little bit larger, like 14, but I might keep it 12. I think I'll keep it 12. So I'm gonna say resources, or maybe it's too, okay, maybe I'm gonna do 14. So resources, that's great. That's gonna be the title. I can duplicate this and then just say example builds. And this will have to be a link component that I can reuse that has this little like hover effect. So to create that, I can right click, add stack, set the width to fit content. Height is going to be 30 pixels. And then I'm going to rename this to a link, this stack. And I'll turn it into a component. Option Command K or a right click and create component. Here we're going to have the default primary variant. And by clicking here on the bottom to the hover, we can create a hover state. So as you can see, by default, actually it is having this like gray color. Here it's going to be white. And it's going to also have a text decoration underline. Pretty good. Actually, we might be able to like play around with this. Maybe the offset is going to be a little bit larger. I don't know if you really need this, but I don't know, maybe they do something like this. So now if we hover over, that will nicely appear. Again, something like this, I prefer instant transition. So I'm going to set that. So we have this. Of course, text has to be adjustable per instance. So variable is created as well as for the link. Pretty good. So now all I have to do is to make sure that these are in the same stack. So I'm going to press Option Command Enter on my keyboard, wrap them in a stack and set the direction to vertical. I'm going to left align them and the gap will be something a bit smaller. Maybe. Actually, I might leave them on 0 and then just, or actually I don't know. Maybe it will be a little bit more like 10 and then I'm going to wrap the links in a stack, just call it links. And then this stack will be just block. And then here the links within will be set to with fill. Now, as you can see, it doesn't really work because here this example builds text, it has to be width set to fill. And then if I increase this width here, it's gonna look a little bit better. And what I can do now is I can just have them in one stack, as you can see, set the gap to 0, and all of them are filling up the available space while also keeping themselves to the left, which is really good. Example builds, documentation, contact, support. That's it. Then I'm going to duplicate this block. This is going to be company. We're going to change the links here, legal, careers, brass, and brand kit. Okay, pretty good. Now, to make sure that this logo is aligned to the top, I'm just going to select this row and nicely top align it. Great. You can see that these are a little bit smaller on the original and positioned to the right. We can do that really easily by selecting them and adding a max width to both of them. And I'm going to set this max width like 340 or something, or even smaller, so they're nicely positioned here on the right. Okay, that's great. I think one thing that we could do, because I don't really like that we're touching the edge here as well as here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the navigation to 20, 20 on both sides, or maybe even 24. And then what I'm going to do is in each section, I'm going to apply this 24 padding. So now, as you can see, this is what we see. We no longer have the text aligned to the very left edge, which makes everything a little bit nicer. Great. So this part is created. Maybe here we have a little bit more gap between these two. Let me scroll down and see if all of these work. Yes, they do work. So now all we need is to just create that large text on the bottom. It says Earth, INC. So I'm going to press T on my keyboard. I'm actually going to duplicate this row before and delete everything. I'm just going to have the Earth, INC button. You might notice that this is a large text, so the width will be fill. And again, we're going to be using fit like size. And this row will be set to fit height. Like this. So here we're going to be using the special Gothic expanded. And the color will be this grayish, something like maybe this. Okay. The line height will be something a little bit smaller, like 1. And we're going to do a little trick here because we want to make sure that it's sort of like overflowing to the bottom of the side, but we kind of want to make it like responsive so that on all screen sizes, it's nicely overflowing to the bottom. And basically this like with the same value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the bottom padding from the footer. I'm going to also set the footer now to fit content. And then what I can do is I can hide the Earth. I can actually just duplicate the Earth INC and then hide one of them and set the other one into a wrapper frame. Let's just do it step by step. First, I'm going to set the Earth INC inside of a frame. So I'm going to wrap it. Now I'm going to have this just called like text wrapper. I'm going to set this to absolute position. So now it's over, as you can see. And I can pin it to all sides. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to just set the width to, actually, we don't even need these pins. We can set the like relative 100 for the width. We can deactivate all the pins. And then the height will be relative and it will just be larger, like maybe 200 pixels. And then within this, the Earth INC will still be fill width. So really important, actually that was a mistake on my end. This will not be just a frame, it will be a stack. So we should have wrapped it in a stack, but we can just turn it into a stack on the right panel. And then again, just set the width to fill, fills up the available space. And then the text wrapper will be vertical direction and distribute. So now you can see that it is overflowing to the bottom. So now we can remove the Earth INC that is visible here by setting visibility to 0. It will technically still be there, and then just adjust the height until we get an offset value that we like. And with this, as you can see on all breakpoints, it's gonna be offsetted the same value to the bottom. You might be like, but like, why we do all these crazy things in order to achieve this? Well, because that's how we can do it. Like if we don't have this hidden like element here, let me just show you, like we just set visible to no. As you can see, it's gonna be messed up. In some cases, it's not visible. In some cases, it's visible. Here, it's like more to the bottom. Here, it's, more to the top. Here, it's positioned a little bit closer to the bottom and it's not even visible here. So this here is really important because it makes sure that this row is always adapting to the height that we currently have on the text layer. Because the text layer always changes the width, and with that, the text size is changing and the height as well. This row has to follow that size change, that height change. We can only do that if we set height to fit, which is already fit. But if we only have the text wrapper within an absolute element, it cannot fit it because it can only fit a relative element. So that's why we have the actual text layer here with a relative position set to visible, yes. We just set it to opacity no, so we cannot see it, but in reality, it is actually there. So now the row can always fit the actual size. In this case, 221, but you can see if we select it here, the row is 146. So that's like a little trick here. I'm going to set the Earth INC up in a way that it has sort of like a mask. So style mask will be added. Something like this, not too much. Yeah, that looks great. And then I'll just make sure to add some top padding to the footer a little bit more, like this. Okay, so now it's time to optimize the footer as well. So I'm going to right click and create a component because, you know, components can not only be used for reusability, interactions, animations, but also for optimization. We already discovered this with navigation, and now we can do the same with the footer. So I'm gonna just delete the tablet and phone, or actually at this point we can just keep it because it's just fine to have it here, and work with these like variants they already gave us. Here we're gonna set the row to vertical direction and fit height, and probably that's gonna be it. Maybe we're gonna increase the gap. Anything else needed? I don't think so. I think that's it. Was pretty easy. So tablet and phone, they both look great. And if I look at this now, right here on this screen, it tells me that we have created a website from scratch inside a Framer, and it has all the optimized breakpoints. So it basically will look great on all devices. And we can also just preview it. And actually, let me show you, because like, okay, we have created the website in Framer, but how do we make sure that it's live on the internet? Because yeah, it felt like we're like kind of just playing around in Figma, like drawing rectangles and stuff. But this is serious stuff inside of Framer because we have a publish button on the top right. We click that and our site is live on the internet. I can click the link and as you can see, it's right there. All the animations, all the interactive elements, it's real, it works, and it's just there on the internet. As you can see, all the effects are there. It's a little messed up on that last little text here. I don't know what happened to it. Maybe we can check it. And also the footer is here, really cool. One thing we can do is we can also add an appear effect to the navigation. So let's just fix up those two things. We're going to copy the appear effect that we have here. Copy effects. Paste it on the navigation. Paste effects. Here it's going to come in from the top. So -10 offset. And then maybe it's going to be, I don't know, should it be the first thing that comes in? Probably not. Maybe 0.5, sorry, 1.5 is going to be the delay value here. So as you can see, it waits and then it comes in. I think it's pretty good. Okay. Let's also see what happens here on this text there. I have no idea. Let's just see. Actually works here. Like, as you can see, it's completely okay. But on the live site, if we like publish this, it seems like that the text there in the background is slightly misaligned. We kind of just have to figure out which one is the correct. But I have a feeling that actually the one in the background, that's the correct, and these three on the top are slightly offset to the left. So we're gonna just double check everything. I think I'm gonna set this text layer to with fit content. And let me just see. Okay, this is relative. Text 1, text 2 is not pinned. Text 3, not pinned. Okay. This is also not pinned. Maybe that simple change by setting the text to with fit fixed it. Let's see. I'm gonna reload. And yeah, as you can see, sometimes in Framer, honestly, like, why is it better to have it on with fit? I don't know, but as you can see, it just fixed it for us. So yeah, it seems like it's gonna be a happy ending. So yeah, I really do hope that this video was helpful for you and you were able to learn a bunch of things along the way. And you also ended up with this amazing website that you can show to your friends or whatever, or maybe actually just a little tip for you guys who watch the full thing. If you like complete this site and you add a few more sections, pages, and you submit it as a template, I can actually see it making a few $1,000s. So it's up to you what you do, but I would say you need to take advantage of these opportunities and stuff like that. So yeah, but even if it was just a fun little practice session, or you were able to get started with Framer because of this video, I'm super happy to hear it. If you got stuck somewhere or you're having issues, make sure to drop a comment in the comment section. Also, if you just found it helpful, please write me a feedback or whatever, because it's just really great seeing when you guys are like either happy with the tutorial or just, you know, seeing if you guys have any feedback. Also, you saw that we were using Framer University a bunch of times along this tutorial. So make sure that you're also checking it yourself. I'm actually posting resources every single day, except on weekends. But yeah, it has over 500. Like, if you want to learn Framer or use Framer, build sites, this is basically heaven. Like, it has so much thing. You can also just get inspired or whatever. Because I'm usually like recreating the finest interactions or components or little UI details from the internet. So yeah, I think this will probably help you if you're messing around with Framer. So yeah, that's it for this video. Make sure to like it, subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you next one.